All right. Happy Monday, everybody. Hope you can hear me and see me okay. Uh, hey, Jacket. Hey, Gashrin. Hey, WJ. WJ commenting already. The title sounds cool. Are they actual gods, ancients mistaken for gods, or aliens? And how is a low level party supposed to survive a city of them? Well, we're going to find out. So, the story behind this, and I'll switch over to it. The story behind this was I was on Reddit surfing around. Was it yesterday, Saturday, or it might have been yesterday? And I ran across a post where someone was frustrated with the fifth edition campaigns and that they were seemed to be super complicated to them. They had said anyway that they'd successfully run things like the starter kit adventures. I think Dragons by Spire Peak and also uh, Lost Mines of Fandelver with success. But when they got into trying to run other of the campaign books, complications, and they just were frustrated with it, and they're wondering, isn't there anything more straightforward and simple? And one of the responses there was someone saying, hey, I wrote something that I think fits that bill, and that something is in the City of Forgotten Gods. Now, there was someone else who responded who had play tested this, who apparently play tested it on using their high school group. I think it was the first thing they ran. I think it was also done at the beginning of the pandemic. So it was done over Zoom, and that they were able to run this with very little to no prep at all. And so, being intrigued by all this talk, I reached out to the author and asked them, hey, if you wouldn't mind sending this to me, I'd love to check it out. So they did. And so here it is. Hey, Krister, glad to get confirmed. Like, you hear me okay? So I'm really interested to see if this does succeed at that, from what we could tell from reading it, and then of course maybe what does it do? What secrets of campaign books has it unlocked, especially for 5th edition? I think there's a lot of things that in the OSR space, because of just the way OSR games tend to be, and I think because of some of the design principles that a lot of the, even especially the newer books have taken on, have gotten us to a more of a low prep place. But I think for the 5th edition game and games of similar, still involve lots of prep, lots of things you need to do. So I'm really curious to see what steps, what tricks, what things has this particular author done in this particular module to alleviate that. And maybe it's stuff that we can apply to our own games as well. WJ says, is this compatible with Expedition to the Bear of Peaks or the Lost Laboratory of Qualish? I don't know. I think it takes place in kind of its own. I'm guessing this. I think it's setting. We'll see if they say anything. Pretty sure it's pretty setting agnostic. This is obviously not a Wizards of the Coast thing, so it's not going to be directly in those realms. Where is Expedition to Barrier Peaks? What that's in? Is that Mistar or is that Land of Grey? Is that Greyhawk? I think it's Greyhawk, or right Barrier. I think maybe I'm not sure. Certainly, I would guess it's not in Forgotten Realms, though I assume you can place it wherever you want, which I think is one of the strengths. Well, anyway, let's get to the adventure summary. There's a lot here, over 100, almost closing in on 150 pages of content, probably say 130 some odd. So not sure if we're going to be able to get through this all in one stream. So I'm going to try to be choosy about what I cover, but I think the summary is a great place to start. So let's start there. Adventure summary. In the City of Forgotten Gods is a series of adventures intended to take a party from their first session at level 1 to level 5. These adventures center on the city of Tura, an ancient city that has fallen and been rebuilt many times. The party will come into conflict with a rogue order of paladins, the Silver Fist. The paladins' leader, Rovan Brightedge, seeks to restore the reign of Zezmok, a merciless archdevil who once dominated Tura. Along the way, the party will investigate blasphemous rituals and befriend and teach a newborn deity. Well, there you go. Part 0 provides the adventure hooks for a variety of characters. The player characters need not know each other at the start. In Part 1, the party meet each other. They have been separately hired to investigate the presence of undead in the city catacombs. They discover the remnants of a ritual conducted in a crypt where a celestial being was killed and its blood used to reanimate a corpse. In Part 2, the party emerge from the catacombs into Tura City proper. On their way to collect payment, they are accosted by members of the Silver Fist. The party is encouraged to dig deeper into the Silver Fist activities and the evil ritual they uncovered. Parts 3 through 8 represent different avenues for the party to investigate. The party can explore them in whichever order seems appropriate, but information the party gathers should lead them to Part 4, Only part 4 is strictly necessary to advance the story. Let's see, part 3 involves research at the Eternal Library, Tour's repository for knowledge. In part 4, the party investigates the long-abandoned temple of the fire god Id Siva. It has recently become the home of a young white dragon and its kobold minions. In the temple's inner sanctum, a young god is being born in the form of a tree growing from the old god's ashes. They learn that Zezmok has stolen a piece of the god's divine spark, the Heart of Fire. As the party exits the temple, they are confronted by Medasilvi of the Silver Fist. After part 4, the party's investigation should eventually lead them to the destitute noble house of Omenstar. The tree will visit the party's dreams periodically, asking questions that allow the party to shape its personality. Part 5 is what happens if the party attempts to tail a member of the Silver Fist. They find one of the Silver Fist's safe houses and one of the altars Zezmok uses to teleport his minions to his lair. The party may have a telepathic encounter with Zezmok. Part 6 is what happens if the party seeks the help of Tura's other orders of paladins. Johem Rustbanner of the Order of the Crimson Shield can offer limited help. He tells the party about the disappearance of Prera Ferine. Part 7 is what happens if the party seeks the help of Tura's rulers. It is not fruitful. Part 8 is what happens if the party investigates the source of a strange crystal used in the ritual they uncovered. This leads them to the Gemtooth mine. While the mine has been supplying the Silver Fist with Aurite crystal, Rovan Brightedge has recently attacked the mine and kidnapped several of its workers to accelerate his plans. In Part 9, the party investigates Griffin Hill, the Omenstar family's decrepit estate, which the Silver Fist are using as a headquarters. The mansion is haunted by the ghost of Prera Ferine, who was sacrificed to Zezmok. The party faces Medasilvi, who has been reanimated using celestial blood, and Walther Omenstar, who is in thrall to Zezmok. In Part 10, the party ventures into the dungeon beneath Griffin Hill. In Part 11, the party reaches the cave where Zezmok is trying to rebuild the city he once ruled. Graham Kopiker of the Silver Fist, infused with celestial blood, leads a group of Gemtooth artisans through the city toward the central ziggurat, where they will be sacrificed in a ritual to merge Zezmok's spirit with Rovan Brightedge. The party ultimately confronts the amalgamated Rovan Zezmok monstrosity as it attempts to consume the Heart of Fire and ascend to godhood. And then Part 12 covers the aftermath of Zezmok's defeat and the rewards the party may receive from its various allies. Whew. All right. Krister says, newborn deity. That certainly sounds interesting. It is. WJ says, this sounds like it would be fun. Any Rifts Palladium Fantasy has a literal demigod class. And Frederick Ork says, yeah, you will need big magic from a system like Arcanum by Bard Games. Yeah, so now keeping in mind, right, this is 5th edition, so it is more, I don't say linear, but narrative focused than, say, something that's just like, hey, here's this city, which is cool by me. I think it's not trying to be sort of an OSR style game. I like that it gives you all the parts laid out. It's awfully nice to be able to come in here and read this, and I can read this and go, okay, in a minute or 2 minutes of reading, I get the sense of where everything is. I also like that the parts, they're not all linear. They say, hey, here's a bunch of parts that they can kind of do in any order, probably not do all of them if they choose not to, but they've just split it up so you can kind of see, oh, here are sort of the different main options that they have. Let's see, notes on reading these adventures. Let's see, is there anything? So we do have read aloud text that's in these gray boxes. We have maps. If you download this on drive-through, you do get a zip file with a whole bunch of maps, and there's a section. It's split up into 2 folders of both maps. If you want to do player-facing maps, they have a set of player-facing maps, and then they have a set of DM-facing maps. I didn't go through those to check out the differences, but you do get both folders. So presumably, I haven't checked that either. I'm guessing that they'll work with your VTT of choice if you use such. So it's nice that those are kind of seem to be ready for you out of the box. And this is fairly fresh oolong tea for the working man. Next section is only the GM knows. So we get a secret history, which I always like that stuff. But I'm going to skip it for this reading just because I gotta cut somewhere. And then we get to the now. So we go through and starting from thousands of years ago to now. As the adventure begins, the first of Zezmok's, experiments has just failed. The mind of Zezmok. This should not be stated explicitly, as Zezmok hides it from his followers, but the Archdevil's motives are simple. In short, Zezmok exists to punish mortals. To punish is to be superior. Zezmok perceives immortal sins as the part of them that allows him to punish them. Nothing else about a mortal matters except what Zezmok can use them for. Even for Zezmok's most devoted followers, the hope of escaping punishment is a false one. They are destined to fall short and be punished for it. That's nice. I mean, it's a cool concept, but I also like that they lay it out for you. I'm always a fan of, tell the people if there's something obvious they need to know about this person, especially the GM. Please tell us. We can, sure, you can imply things or heavily suggest things, but sometimes you just want to know. Just tell us. A nice section on content warnings and where to find them, which I appreciate. Now we get to the call of adventure. Nightbot got WJ. Beware Nightbot, WJ. Okay, so now we get to the call of adventure. Several of the player characters will separately receive letters prompting them to begin this adventure. Choose the letter best suited to each character's backgrounds or bonds. Not every character needs to receive a letter. If any of them are acquainted through their backstories, one who got a letter may recruit another to join them for the adventure. The goal is to have 2 or 3 separate groups of player characters enter the catacombs to meet in this, I guess, location or area, which is called 1A. Now it's a party. So we get some letters you can hand out, and it's kind of cool. I think it's a nice idea to go through the backgrounds. 5th edition has all those backgrounds, and then you can basically tailoring the note to the background, which I suppose there's a chance that the player won't be enticed by the letter, even though it's tailored to the character's backgrounds. But it's a nice thing. It's nicer than just having one letter, right? You could try to appeal to something about that character's past, hoping to get a role-playing minded player to go, oh yeah, my character's an academic, therefore this is academically interesting, so I shall follow it. And of course, it's the start of a campaign, so hopefully they'll just go along because, hey, this is the start of a campaign, go along. Part 1, the catacombs. So we're supposed to, I believe from this, these letters are supposed to lead them to the catacombs, which we get to the part 1, the catacombs, and then A, now it's a party. We get some read aloud text, and then this is where you're going to meet up, and then zombies. So I'm not going to read all of these entries, but I do want to, because again, part of my intrigue in all this is the sort of low prepness. So I want to try to look at, well, how is this stuff formatted? How is it presented to be sort of low prep, right? So this is our first meeting, or this is the first actual location in the game, part of this initial dungeon. So I guess I will read the stuff in here in a little bit of depth, and then probably later on, we'll just kind of pick and choose spots. But here it is. We're supposed to be meeting up. So we get some read aloud text. It says, you make your way through the twisting tunnels of the catacombs. To your relief, all the bodies you pass lining the walls are resting peacefully. After about an hour, you find the place you're looking for. The hall opens up about 10 feet wide here. There's an arched doorway in one wall. Through it, a narrow stairway plunges into the darkness to a much older part of the catacombs. That is where you need to go. Excuse me. But before you get to the stairs, you realize that there's someone else here. By coincidence, the heroes have arrived at the staircase at the same time. Oh, that's what a coincidence, but it makes sense. And then they're meeting up. They're giving their introductions to each other, and then bam, we get right into zombies. So you start with A. Party kind of meets up in this one location, then bam, into a nice combat, get things moving. A moan echoes up the stairs. You hear uneven footsteps. Something is coming towards you. 2 zombies ascend the staircase toward the party. When they notice the living beings, they attack. One of the zombies is recently buried and trailing a funeral shroud. Boy, excuse me. The other is a recently killed treasure hunter dressed in sturdy leathers. He is missing his left arm below the elbow. Probably got bitten off by the mimic further down. All right, that's a nice little hint at something else happening down there. The zombies will approach the nearest visible conscious target in a straight line and bludgeon it with their slam attacks. They do not use tactics or display any sense of self-preservation. I mean, of course, they're zombies. The party gains 150 XP for getting past the zombies. Don't bother adding more zombies to scale up the encounter. It should go quickly. So just a quick encounter. I think it's a nice touch, just conceptually. You want to kind of get the party moving. One way to do that is just put them under some pressure. It's not a heavy amount of pressure. They're not in. This should probably not be a really tough encounter. And the book is even saying, listen, they're going to go in a straight line. They're going to beeline for the closest thing, try to bludgeon them to death. They're not going to be smart. They're not going to use tactics. They're just going to go. So it gets you going, and it's probably going to get people concentrating on, okay, instead of dithering around here, let's get downstairs. See what's going on. All right, so then you also get some stuff in the Treasure Hunters pack. They get a potion of healing, red potion, so they might have to identify it. An amber potion, that's a potion of growth, and a light crossbow with some bolts. And the shrouded zombie has a brass necklace with a black streaked yellow sodalite stone that's worth 10 gold. Then we go to the next set. We just get some staircases. Then the harmless treasure chest, which is actually a mimic. So you're definitely getting your some of your D&D tropes out of the way super fast. Jacketh likes the simple art style thrown out there. Yep, I think it's good. I think it's very clean, right? It's not complicated. It's not fancy in any means, but everything is laid out very well. I can follow the letters and numbers quite easily. The text is all readable. There's nothing. There's not a lot of layout. I mean, there's basically just one column. I'm guessing this is 8.5 by 11, just regular letter size. I mean, maybe it's different, but it looks like it to me. And the art is very simple, but you can read everything. And I think that's one of the things that sometimes, especially with sort of the Moorkbourge, post-Moorkbourge type things, it's easy to go really kind of crazy with the layout and make it really fun and exciting to look at as a visual collage. And then you're actually trying to run it, and it's how do I read this? How am I supposed to read this? This one, and this is obviously done by I think this is just a single person, right? This is not somebody. There's not a company of people working on this, but they've done something which I think is always good. It's just go simple and concentrate on the important stuff. And the important stuff in this case is just being able to play it. Very easy to read this and follow it, which is good. I could pull up the map. Hold on a minute. There is a map. If I pull it up here, and let's go to the DM maps. I think this is the catacombs. Oops. Yeah, just go with that. Just do that. Yeah. So right now you can see here, this is very linear, right? There's not a lot of choices, no jacazing going on, but I think that's fine for what we're trying to do. Here's where they meet. Come down. The zombies are up in here. I think we're in this area right here. I'm totally fine with that. I think that there's that kind of concept of sort of having the time and the place for different things. And in this case, this is really just an intro. So I think not dumping them into some crazy mythic underworld is totally fine. There'll be enough time, and there's enough stuff going on further in. So it's just a nice, simple, get your feet wet, and just you can kind of feel good, get a little thing done. Not everything has to be super complicated. So I am not averse to the fact that this is linear. But it is, if it means something to you, it is. But I don't feel like I mind in this sense. Then we get to the mimic attacking. Then we get to the den. If you go search the bones, you get some more treasure. Then we get to a long hallway. Then we get to a goblin den that's got a chamber. We get goblins to skeletons. No combat here. There's no even any box text. So it's just we could just kind of read this stuff out loud. Get through there. Oh, there's a magic sword. Look at that. Right away, you get a magic sword. So there are other goblin skeletons strewn around the room that were too damaged to reanimate. One such skeleton is impaled on a sword, now bent, with a distinctive crest on its pommel, closed fist surrounded by flame. So it's a bent. Oh, it's not. Sorry, I thought. I thought maybe it was a magic sword because I saw his intelligence, but that's just an intelligence check. So sorry, not a magic sword. I was misreading that in my, magic swords. Like, no, magic. Because I was thinking about magic swords having intelligence. And so I just got ahead of myself. Nope, just a sword. But it might give some clues. DC 15 history check gives one thing, and a DC 15 religious check gives something else. Floor, you might find some other stuff. Then we get to a dead end. Then there's a blasphemous mausoleum, which we get some box text. And then we get a ghoul. So we are definitely going through some good old-fashioned D&D tropes right up front. Zombies, a mimic, and now we get a ghoul. But this ghoul might be a little bit stronger. It says it has an angel. It's an angel-fed ghoul. Oh, it doesn't have the paralysis ability. Aha. Okay. But it has something else. It has the unnerving gaze. When a creature that can see the ghoul's eyes starts its turn within 30 feet of the ghoul can force it to make a DC 10 con saving throw if the ghoul isn't incapacitated and can see the creature. A creature that fails to save is stunned till the start of its next turn. So it's kind of like a ghoul light. Ghoul light. And then we see we get a little section here on tactics for the ghoul, which is cool. And then we get some more things. We have some of the items in the room, and then given a nice little table of what we can get with various things. So we get a nice little table of, I like the various DCs here. So essentially you can have the character roll a religion check, and depending on how well they score, they might get a whole bunch of stuff. They might get one. So the DC 10 probably pretty easy, DC 15 kind of tough, and then DC 20 pretty tough, but that's nice. There's only a DC 10 one for Arcana. Investigating the shelves. Yeah, I like these checks nicely laid out, and I like having the multiple DCs. He's nice. There's an adult body. We can find an iron key. It's a glass sphere. So there's some nice investigative stuff in here, even though the dungeon itself isn't super, not going to be really hard to follow, but there's some nice things. You're rewarded for going in and checking things out, which I like, right? There's a lot of material in here, and they give you, remember this being for 5th edition, they're lining up skills, so you could obviously, if you wanted to adjudicate it just using fictional positioning, you could, but I like that okay, they hear all these different elements in the room, and here are kind of the things you're going to get if you want to roll some dice on a skill check. If someone asks, like, what does my religion know about this creature? Okay, boom, done. And if they want to come with something else, you could probably either adapt that or just say, Arcana might, or that's a different item, because that's I guess clear crystal is Arcana. So you get it, but it does telling you basically what skill is going to be applicable here, what it's going to give you. What skill is going to be applicable, what does it give you? Shelves, skills applicable, investigation, what does it give you? Bam. And then so on and so forth down the line. And then we get to the exit. Once the party has explored the mausoleum to their satisfaction, they have completed this part of the adventure. It's time for them to return to the surface to rest and seek their payment in the city of Tours. When they leave the catacombs, we go here. Because remember, they were tasked to come here. Here you get some nice maps of the catacomb areas. So now we're going to get into the city area itself. Let me see if I can pull up a map of the city. Oh, one other thing, the maps are all labeled too. So another nice thing is if you're looking at the folder with all the maps in it, the maps are all labeled. So I can basically use this. Here's the catacombs. That's map 1, map 2 is that. So that's really nice because I can pull in something like, I'm not crazy about Microsoft's Photos app, but any kind of photo app that's going to basically give you alphabetical order, you can go through, have all these images up and just cycle through them as you need. So that's also very nice. So you get a nice image of the city with all the different areas, the Tour River, the old city, so on and so forth. Now let's see, we get, up into the city. Oh, here we go. This is nice. So the core rules referenced. Okay, so I think this probably was there and I just skipped right over it, but a little segment here in this part that's telling you what rules you're going to need. So you're going to need, of the core rules, you're going to need creature stats for commoners, nobles, and spies. Going to want to know what the frightening condition is, and you're going to want to know those spells. So again, ace, right? Because if I'm the GM and I'm just like, okay, we did part 1 in our session 1, and then we're done. Now we're into part 2, and I'm going to come here. What do I need? What stuff should I bookmark? Or what stuff should I have up on D&D Beyond if I'm doing D&D Beyond? Or what stuff should I kind of have my notes? Okay, this is what I need. All right, commoner, noble, spy. I can copy, paste those, grab them from wherever. Great. Yeah, let me read up on what the frightened condition is because I'm getting that. Great. Okay, and let me make sure I have these spells marked out or written down or pasted or whatever. So I like that a lot. It is a nice way to look at and say, that reducing of prep, because not only does it reduce the prep, but it also reduces the friction in a given moment for having to do those lookups. Because if I'm able to do any kind of prep, I will have had the opportunity to look those up beforehand. So I should not have to then flip through and, let me read it. Whoa, where's Eldritch Blast? Let me find it. It's like, no, okay, I knew that. And it's not a super amount of stuff. 10 minutes before game time, I could go through, the PHP and stick some Post-it notes where those spells are, maybe give them a quick read just so I know for sure kind of what they're doing. Same thing for the frightened condition. All right, let me just give that a quick read. All right, I got that. And then, let me get the monster manual out or wherever has those 3 stat blocks. Now we get into the sections here that are listed again by letters. Oops. Oh, that's right, because Ian's got admin powers. I forgot in the chat. So Frederick has got some nice twists and turns. All right. So now we're up in Tourist City. Up into the city, the party emerges on the surface by a stone staircase and an overgrown and mostly forgotten cemetery in Tour's old city. So the old city, where was that? That is, so we emerge and we are somewhere over here. Hey, WJ, if you want to send something, I can't tell if you were trying to send something, a link or whatnot, but you can always go to the forums.hex.press and post it there, or, I'm on Twitter and other places, social media, or you can probably leave it as a comment in the stream as opposed to a chat in the stream if you're on YouTube. Something you want me to see or want anybody to see. All right, so up in the city, we come out. We're free to travel around the city now. Yay, we get the city overview. I like these are all labeled too. So, okay, we can, if I need to know about city overview, I go to B, which is right here. If we go directly to try to get payment, go to this part. And then if they try to get payment from this person, they go over this part. And if they wish to rest, they've got some options, which are laid out here. And then any of these things should lead to an encounter with the Silver Fist. The Silver Fist are coming. Does Tourist City have pizza? That's a good question. I'm not sure. The overview, we get the sections of the city, which I'm going to kind of breeze over, but it's nice to know that even so the river here has a history. You can do a history check, and if you want to know information about the river, we go through all these sections. Again, more history checks. Get the docks, Temple District, the river, another history check, Silvergate, the Sacred District, and this has more attached to it. So if they go in there, we can go down to this section and read more about that. There are undercity tunnels, and you can do some survival checks. And then I think this is one of the folks, right? That's one of the people you might be going to. Yeah, so this is one of the people you might be going to for payment. We have some little subsections here about what happens if they do different things, answering questions, trying to get help from the paladins, contacting the government. I guess there's something to do with looking for, or maybe they're asking if they ask him to have some religious help or divine magic. This is a section on that, and then asking for money. So essentially, here you have this NPC, and it gives you some little sections. Just, hey, if they're asking for money, this is what they're going to be about. They're asking for, okay, Mr. Paladin, can you cast some spells for us? This is what they're asking for. How do we contact the government? This is what it is. So basically covering all the ground. So whatever your PC start droning on about, you can go look here and okay, so these are general questions. All right, fine. I can just answer those. Oh, if they're asking for help, all right, he's going to tell them to go see these other people. Oh, if we want to know how to contact the powers that are, there's a quote here: "The wheels of the city bureaucracy turn too slowly, if they turn at all. For matters of safety or justice, it's better to go to the paladins." So there you go. There's his answer on that. If they want divine magic, they want financial help. So it's a nice way of just going through, and we can see that just about every question is going to fall into one of those categories. So then as a GM, we don't need to necessarily guess we can just look through here and say, okay, this is the kind of question they're asking. This is obviously there's still going to be improv and answering it in my own way, but I have an idea of, okay, what information is this person going to have? What is it? What are they going to tell them? And it cuts down on some of the work I have to do to think all this stuff on my own. Oh, WJ was asking if anyone got Wizard of Oz vibes from this. I see. Interesting. I'll have to read more, but maybe. Hey, Terrence. Terrence says Silver Fists are coming. They are coming. We'll see where they are. So here we go. The Bad Mill. It's got some Silver Fists. And there's some urchins in the alley. So here we have a section on fighting the Silver Fist. We got a confrontation. The leader So Rovan is going to speak. He wants to convey the following. This is also nice too. So he's not giving you the exact speech that Rovan is giving them, but he's giving you the bullet points. You're getting the bullet points here. So the two things that Rovan wants the party to know is that the Silver Fist is going to bring justice to the docks and other places, and stay out of their way because the Silver Fist punishes who they please. And he kind of wants to fight, and he's going to try to provoke the party to fight, but maybe he's not going to throw the first punch. And he's got a magical flail called chastisement. Very cool. Also knows what he knows. What does Rovan know? And then what happens if you win or lose? And there's a note here. The party is not intended to win this fight. The important thing is that the players come away with the desire to take down the Silver Fist. These characters are meant to show up again. So if one of them dies here, make a note. Switch up their species or gender so that the real Rovan, Meta, or Graham is not identical to the character who died. Rovan Brightedge wants to thrash the party to send a message, not murder them in public. If the Silver Fist leaves the party unconscious, either Quam or Aletha Highborough will come after the dust is settled to help them patch up. So it's kind of one of those intro fights. So the interesting thing about the note, because this is one of those things that comes up a lot, I think, in games where a GM is fixated on having the big bad evil guy present themselves to the party at some stage, usually very early on. They want to have a moment where you're in a tavern or you're somewhere and the big bad evil guy's there, and maybe you don't know it's the big bad evil guy. You're not meant to know, but there's going to be and they're going to get a little glimpse of him, and haha, and that's supposed to be fun. Sometimes the idea is that the big bad evil guy crushes the party to within 1 inch of their lives and then leaves to, I don't know, show them a lesson or something. Sometimes it's just to be sneaky, and then sometimes the party goes off the rails, manages to kill the big bad evil guy or do something unexpected, and then the GM is left going like, "What happened? They killed my big bad evil guy." So knowing that regardless of how this encounter is set up, the fact is that the party might get lucky or the NPCs might get unlucky and somebody may die. The note that whoever they killed ends up being sort of imposter or I don't know, not even a body double, whatever. I think maybe they might not even give their names. Basically, just make it so that since they probably aren't giving up their names, then you just make sure to change up whatever they look like so that like, oh, those weren't the leaders. Those were some lieutenants and the real leaders are over here, whatever it is, to preserve them, which is a good note. Now, I'm not always a fan of this type of encounter, but at least they've thought about, well, what happens if this encounter goes unplanned route, which is that the party doesn't get beaten down and instead does the beating down. And so we have an out, which is good, because the worst would be if, I think, where you read it in one of these in the campaign and you have this encounter early on and it's all the stuff, and then you're like, well, the party just beat this guy, so what do I do for the rest of this campaign? And the authors didn't seem to think about that possibility of, oh, what if the party did do something totally unexpected, rolled 5 20s in a row and I rolled 5 1s in a row, and so there's every possible bad thing happened in the universe, and now this guy's dead, and they didn't think about what to do with that. So here they give us we've got an out. Ian says, reminds me of playing Baldur's Gate 1, walking through the city, and every minute or so when you come across flaming fist guards, the "I serve the flaming fist" sound clip plays over and over again. Very funny. Yeah, it's been a long time since I played Baldur's Gate 1. But yeah, I can see that. We get some stat blocks for the Silver Fist. All good. Nice picture of Rovan Brightedge with, what's the name of that? Chastisement. I like that. It's a nice name for a magic weapon, and it's a flail too, which is cool. A little bit different, not just not your average magic sword. So the party's now given free roaming of Tura. We get some undercity encounter maps. So remember the Eternal Library. So now these sections are all about at this point, I think presumably the party has been inspired to want to take down these guys, and presumably you could have one of these NPCs also, maybe if they really don't seem to be into it, or they haven't taken the hint yet that these are bad guys that need to be taken down a couple of pegs. Probably someone else could make the suggestion, or even, I suppose, hire them or promise something. But I think from here on forward, I think the concept is that they're trying to figure out what's going on, right, with the Silver Fist, with these sort of mysteries that are here. WJ says, I'm sure the second is thrilled that the big bad evil guy dies early. Free promotion. Absolutely. There's always somebody. Always somebody. And here we get, I like that again, the core rules. This one you might need Acolyte, Noble, Priest, and Quasit stat blocks. Get some more research. Ad Sva, the purifying flame. Ad Sva was among the gods worshipped in Turad in the time before King's River was built. Ad Sva's worship has died out, and the library has very little about it. The following fragment of a psalm is preserved on a clay tablet dated to about 1,200 years ago. The followers of Ad Sva used clay tablets to preserve knowledge long after most scribes had adopted other media. It is written in the celestial language. And then we get a nice psalm. And then we have an account attributed to Artem Ad, the last high priest of Ad Sva, from about 400 years ago. Nice stuff. You can find out, I guess, more about Coatl. So here you can really do research. That's kind of nice. So you can just come in here. It looks like there's no particular combat encounters in here, which I like. I kind of like you just come in here and sort of relax, do your research in peace. Nobody's blown it up. They can go to the Temple of Ad Sva, which has, you can see here the reference to the core rules. I think this is just the library. The only thing I might think, I don't know if probably doesn't make a difference. I think from organizationally, I might like if the maps were ahead of the section instead of behind them. But I mean, that's a small. Again, I've got the maps in a separate folder. Let me see. So finding this temple, walking the sacred districts. Oh, this is inside that the sacred district. There are silver fist patrols. You might have to dodge. And the sacred district is full of sleeping dangers. As long as they do not disturb shrines, monuments, and temples as they pass. That might be a hard sell. I know my party, I think, would disturb every shrine, monument, and temple as they pass. So they would probably be making a lot of trouble for themselves. But, you know, that's what happens. There is a table for whatever kind of danger happens if you do something. Oh, I like that there's a warning. So it's a D10 table. There's a warning and then a consequence. So the warning is a shadow falls. The consequence is one character must succeed on a DC 16 saving throw. Must succeed on a DC 16 saving throw or be struck blind for a minute. You could probably mix and match these if you wanted to, or if you wanted to keep them linked. I'm not sure if they're supposed to be linked or if you're supposed to just roll twice, but in any case, you might get a sense of foreboding. A character is cursed with bad luck, receiving disadvantage on their next roll, and then so on and so forth. So they're not huge things, but still, you know, like Shadow Falls, you're blinded for a minute. That's the only thing that's going on. That's fine. If it's something else is going on, then a minute. If you're in combat and that minute hits you, that's rough, right? If it's just exploration time, then it's negligible. The Dragon Bone Cavern, finding the underway city, temple upper level, portico, awarded doors trap, detecting, disarming, triggering. I think my big takeaway, I think, in the organization of this is to where I could see it being, and you know, do I have something in front of me to compare it to? I actually have Curse of Strahd here for absolutely other reasons. Let me see if I can just pull it here. And I'm just sort of thinking about what is this doing that you might say, okay, well, this is help. Like I can see stuff that's helping with the prep, like telling me what materials are going to need ahead of time. That's helping with the prep. Having the tables of here are the checks and what they're giving you is nice for the little prep. Though I assume that, and I don't read tons of 5th edition adventures, other ones have it. We also have, like with that NPC, we've thought ahead about what kinds of questions the party is going to ask or what kinds of topics the party's going to want to talk about. And so we just basically broken those out, and we can tell you they don't know anything about this. They know a lot about this. They know some about this, and this is all they know about this other thing, right? So that all these things help you free up your brain a bit. You don't have to either prep beforehand and figure out what they know, or in the moment start racking your brains over what they know. Oh, they're asking for money. This is what the guy's got, kind of thing. But I want to try to just look really quickly at an example in, say, Curse of Strahd into, you know, what is the difference here, if there is one, in kind of some of the layout things. I wonder if it's just a density, because when you get into one of the things that this book is super dense with the with the text, right? The text is all clear, nice big font, not a lot of columns, not a lot of stuff. I think it makes it simple, but the upshot of that is that it's not having a lot of density does make it easy to kind of filter through it and find things, as opposed to, say, you know, from Curse of Strahd, 2 columns. Yeah, the layout is pretty. It's got all kinds of dibbity doodads, but it's also potentially much more difficult to read. Also, notice some of these areas, say some of these room areas in Curse of Strahd, probably not, it's not giving you too much. It's leaving a lot for you to figure out to do kind of yourself, whether that bothers you or not, or whether that affects you or not. You know, it's going to be very, very personal thing. So we get the mural room. We go through here. We get some more box text. I'm trying to basically go through and get sort of not highlights, because I don't know what's a highlight, but just really want to get examples of how this particular module is, this campaign book, in a sense, is laying stuff out for you, because that to me was the big selling point. And the location seems good. I like the hook. I like the concept of the young god. Maybe we'll see a little bit about that. We can find it in here. But for me, the big hook was this just meta idea of it's easy to run. And someone, like I said, the big person who sort of seconded this claim was someone who said that they ran it for a high school group with basically 0 prep and was able to run it without any issues. So that's a big deal, because for me, 5th edition is one of the more prep heavy games. So anything you could do to kind of cut down on your prep is going to be good. All right, so here we got the tree. I think this is that young god, right? Let's see, did I miss? Hold on a minute. Get through some kobolds, we get through some ambushes. So you have the tree. So this is that newborn god. You get to dream. You might have a dream of the tree in the grove. You can ask, the tree will ask a question of the party or of each party member. Depending on the answer it gets, the tree may ask 1 or 2 follow-up questions. Make notes of the answers the party gives. The tree will adapt its worldview based on them. You will consult these answers at the end of this series of adventures for their part. So that's kind of cool. So instead of you asking questions of the tree is asking you questions. And then you have let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So you have about 10 different questions it could ask. What does the world need? What is most precious? What is the purpose of power? And these are interesting because the questions are important. Reminds me of the at the beginning of Ultima 4, and yes, I'm dating myself horribly. The computer role-playing game Ultima 4. You go to a fortune teller, or it starts you off in a fortune teller, and then you ask these kind of questions, kind of a little bit reminiscent of the questions in Blade Runner, the Voight Kampf questions. And by answering those questions, you determine your class. So if you want to play a fighter, you'd want to answer the questions that you think would be most kind of militant or whatnot. And then you get a fighter and you ask different questions, answer differently, and you would get different things. This is kind of neat because at the end of this thing, presumably you might have this, if everything goes according to Hoyle and you triumph, you might have this new god that's there. And this god's ideas of the world and what is shaped by these questions that you answered, which is a really intriguing idea going forward, of linking like, oh my gosh, how did I answer these questions? Now there's this god out there who literally is going to be doing things based on these things that we told it. So it's really kind of a fun idea, I think. And then you want to track some of the things that the tree might acquire, learning from the party, such as good and evil, law and chaos. Basically the thing and its opposite. Mercy, militance, protectiveness, physicality versus intellectuality, art versus practice, or practical stuff, open versus secretive, that so on and so forth. So that's a really neat idea. I'm curious now. I want to make sure to get that section because I want to know what kind of guidance the book gives you for what happens after that. All right, so then you can get more stuff about asking around about the Silver Fist. Nice charisma tables. Let's see, shadowing them around. Confronting Zezmok. And then they made it, if they try to capture and question somebody, here we get threats and questions. This is nice too, because some of the PCs, you know, are apt to try. So having thought about that eventuality and then kind of how do you want to handle it. And then a little note about torture. And they'll basically that it ain't going to work. And that's good too, because that's something that people have this weird concept of, like, got to torture people and they should be telling us all the goods. Like, that's not generally how it works. So I like that he's just basically flat out telling you, it's not how it's going to work. The Paladins of Tura, they're the unhelpful orders of Paladins. That's nice. And only stats we need are stats for veterans. I'm guessing if you need to fight some of the Paladins, you're going to get veterans. Now we have a section for each one of those. Now the Royal Court, where power sits and sits. That's good. And I like that these aren't really long and drawn out, right? They're not. Here's another thing, which I think I want to just give a little bit of I don't know if kudos is the right word, but sometimes I can say, and I can certainly feel this as a creator, right? You're coming in, you're looking at the section you're working on, and you're looking at this part 7, the Royal Court, and you're looking at it and you're like, boy, this is not even a page. What can I add here? What can I do here? Should I throw in stats? Should I throw in a map? Should I have a whole, should there be a whole series of maps of all the levels of the castle and the keep that the Royal Court is? Do I need courtesans? Do I need all kinds of advisors and whatever? Now, I'm not saying that having some of the information wouldn't be interesting. Here are the courtiers that are around. Yeah, that would be great. But at the same time, do I need those things? For the purpose of this adventure, I probably don't. I probably don't need to know very much. I don't need their stats. They're probably not going to try to kill the king. And, you know, they're probably not going to, you know, try to do certain things. And then if they do go totally off the rails and the king says, sorry, we can't help you, and the party draws blades, I mean, I suppose I could just get some stats. Maybe I've got those commoner stats. I can just throw endless numbers of commoners in the guise of city guards at them. But I guess my point being is it's not really important. Right? They're going here just to find out that the powers that be aren't going to help them. And we've just limited ourselves to just some bullet points, some numerical points that we can go through to do that. We don't need to clutter it up with all kinds of things, especially given that this is sort of a sandbox within kind of a narrative as opposed to just a big sandbox. We can maybe come in later, and if Tura is going to become someplace they're going to be headquartered, then maybe fleshing out more of these people will be important. But for the purposes of this and what's going on, we don't need it, so we're not going to do it, and we're going to just be okay saying, yeah, this part 7 it's short. You go there, you find out, piss off, and then you're done. So now we get to the mines. And I'm just going to be sort of scrolling through here, but we get the sense of the mines. Let's see, do we get a map of the mines? Let me scroll forward just to see the mines. Let's see. Mines. Mine level 1. All right, so this is a slightly more complicated map. It's not super complex. There we get the mines for area 1, and then second one is mine level 2. Mine level 3 opens up the big area with, I guess is this water or just like a sludge? It's kind of interesting pattern there for whatever that is. And now we get some twisties. I think one other thing that's probably keeping in mind here, right? Because I think these dungeon areas are relatively simple. A couple of branching paths, nothing super complicated, nothing, but from a what do you got to sink your teeth into? Caverns of Thracia is at a 10. Like, this is probably at the low end of that, 10 on sort of just interest level and maybe complexity in a dungeon. Keep in mind, I don't think the intention is that you're going to be coming here multiple times. You're kind of moving through. That's part of the narrative thrust, right? You're going to go through, you're going to get to the end, you're going to see what you're going to go, and then you're on to bigger and better things. You're not coming back. So there's really I feel like this style of dungeon works okay because we're not meant to be really here for the long. We're not meant to be just going here over and over again, because that would get super boring. But that's not the point. So you're kind of gutting it through. Like the first part is you get in the catacombs, you go through, you're into the city. You're not ever thinking you're going to go back into those little catacombs in the beginning. It's just not what the game's about. So we don't need to make it some super complicated place. And I think to this strengths of this particular module is we're not putting a lot of stuff that's what you don't need. Because there's a lot of stuff I think you can get involved in where you like it or it seems nice or useful, but then it's only useful maybe if you do things a certain way. It's only useful if you intend to come back. And so you end up having a lot of cruft in there that for the core purpose of the adventure isn't important. And I think he's done a good job. The author's done a good job of sorting out what's important, and that's here, and what's not really important, not here. Now, of course, there's always the risk that what's important to us or you as a GM is not going to be important to them as an author, but I think it seems like, just from reading it, of course, not playing it, that I think that I don't feel like I've run into anything where I'm thinking like, oh my gosh, they missed it. Where is this thing that's vitally important? Haven't seen it yet. Not to say that especially because I'm going through fairly quickly, that there isn't something there, but I have faith, I guess, that the right stuff is here. All right, I'm kind of just going through this stuff because we've seen examples of how they've done rooms and everything. I do like that we have stat blocks where we need it. And here's a nice little cool piece of art. Got some more maps. Now we get to the city of Zezmok. So we have sections here, right? What happens on your approaching? Are you seeing and being seen? Bam, there's what you need to know for that. They got a convoy. You could try to stop that. Bam, chasm. There's the bridge. Crossing without the bridge. See, I do appreciate that. It feels like this is really organized into this area. Okay, here's how you might handle it, or here's a couple of ways that they might approach it. And here I'm just going to give you some information each one of those. I could just tell you chasm with a bridge. And maybe in an OSR game, they might say that chasm with a bridge, and then, climbing or doing this other thing is this much, and then just leave it to the GM to figure out kind of if they decide to jump across the chasm or whatever. But I appreciate, especially for this kind of 5e game, that just, especially for a starter campaign book, which might be for starter GMs and starter players, that you're really laying out, like, here are kind of the things about the situation. Here's kind of what happens here. And there's basically just two things. Either you're crossing by the bridge or you're crossing without the bridge. If you're crossing by the bridge, here's something. You're crossing without the bridge, here's something. And as the GM, I don't have to worry about that stuff. I don't have to think about the different possibilities that they might do. I feel confident that the book's going to give me enough guidance that I can hit it in that moment if it comes up. Frozen Temple, we got some patrols, you got a work camp. The Exsanguinarium, that's a great word. Sacrifice chamber, and then the final battle. Oh, look at that. That's a weird looking thing. And then we get the weapon, which I suppose you could get in the aftermath, which is that chastisement. Okay, so then in the aftermath. So as Zezmok's form dissipates, the tree's roots finally break through the pyramid roof to reach down into the sacrifice chamber. They quickly grow down to Rovan's body, taking root in what remains until it is fully encased. Another root reaches entreatingly towards the nearest party member as the tree speaks to the party telepathically. It thanks the party for their help. It assures the party that Zezmok is truly destroyed, and then it asks the party to unite it with the heart of fire so they can achieve its destiny. All right, so there we go. WJ asks, what is your favorite color? Yeah, that's right. That's how you cross the bridge. That guy is there. Uniting the tree, the heart, and the tree. When the tree's roots touch the heart of fire, its flames enter the roots harmlessly. The heart transforms to a glowing seed, which the tree takes into itself. The tree's root becomes radiant as its nature becomes divine. It spreads like fire until it envelops everything and fills the party's vision, but does not harm them. The party will sense itself being transported magically away. The tree transports them to a sacred forest, which we'll see in a minute. And then we get some notes about the fate of everybody else, which is kind of nice. And the tree chooses the fates of everyone in the underground city. They're either transported to the sacred forest, they're either or killed by sacred fire, or they're unharmed but left their way to make out the left to make their own way out of the ruins. And they the tree is here we go. So part of that fate of everyone else is consider whether the tree is merciful or merciless and how it values mortal life. And then you determine what happens to them. So then you pick, so okay, what happened to the Dwarven artisans? What happened to the were-rat laborers? And then any other minions. And this is based on those answers you gave. So you should have been taking notes to know if the tree is merciless or merciful, does it value life or not? And then that will determine the aftermath with it, which is cool because then if the party does come back, if you decide to make Tura a city that the party will be kind of the new sort of headquarters starting point for the party, then they come back and they find out that this undercity has just been destroyed in some gruesome manner, then they might feel like, oh my gosh, what did we do? What did we do? Or if everyone comes out and they're all like singing la 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 and sucking on lollipops, then that tells you something else. WJ says the 3 billy goats gruff can get us across. Well, what if there's only 2 billy goats? Okay, we have some stat blocks. And then the end. So let's read this one. Of course, spoilers. I mean, we've been spoiling all the way through, but just in case. The Sacred Forest. At the moment of the tree's apotheosis, plants begin to rapidly grow all throughout the sacred district, and in a few hours' time, the area is a dense forest. The temples in the district are unharmed, but now that vegetation grows thickly around and over them. The forest's exact nature depends on the new god's nature, which reflects how the party guided the tree in response to its questions. Select what elements seem appropriate from these lists based on what you think fits the tree's personality and fill in the details as you see fit. So a couple things that are cool here. So here we're getting more of the party has these interactions with the tree, and that is going to shape not only the tree itself, but also this permanent change to the city. So this thing has happened. We've got a little bit of like the Genesis effect happening in the sacred part of the city that's turning it into this forest. And what that forest looks like is direct related to the answers to the questions. So if your party decided to get goofy or whatever with the questions, they're going to see like, oh my gosh, there is this physical manifestation of, I assume they'll realize that it has to do with them. Maybe I could see some thick folks not appreciating what's happened, but I'm assuming they'll be able to recognize that connection of not only is this new God in the world that thinks because of what we told them how to think, here it is physically manifesting in the city. Now this sacred divine district is this sacred forest that's going to have this character that basically we gave it. The trees might be straight, tall, and regularly spaced, or gnarled and knotted, or brightly and various colored, or covered in forbidding thorns, or some combination. You might hear a bird song. There might be ominous growls. There might be silence. There might be otherworldly bells. The canopy might be open, letting through dappled sunlight, or dense and low, enclosing the forest in darkness. And then what creatures might show up there? Dryads and treants, but they'll always be there, but their alignments might probably shift with whatever alignment of the god is. Badgers and giant badgers, fairy dragons, pixies, sprites, and unicorns, or blights, ettercaps, giant spiders, trolls, will-o-wisps, wolves, and dire wolves if it's gone bad. Blink dogs, deer, elk, owls, and giant owls if it's lawful, and boars and giant boars, cockatrices, ogres, owlbears, and satyrs if it's gone chaotic. So this area is going to be very different depending on what choices the party made, which is, I think, a very cool thing. When the party enters the forest, a dryad will step out of the trees and conduct them to the former temple of Ad Seva. Now, the tree has grown so that its roots and trunk completely fill the former temple of Ad Seva, breaking down its walls from the inside. It stands above all the other trees in the forest. Tezcatlipoca, the Coatl, walks among the tree's lower branches for the party to arrive. He will greet the party and explain the following. The entity that inhabited the tree has departed for the outer planes to take its place as a minor deity. This physical tree remains a place of power for this god. As a reward for the party's service to the tree, Tezcatlipoca is empowered to distribute blessings to them on the tree's behalf. Once this is done, Tezcatlipoca will consider his mission on the material plane complete, and then we have possible rewards. Right, go down here. So now you've helped out this god. You get some rewards. What might you get? You might get you might have an item or a tool blessed. You can choose an item or tool in the party's possession associated with a skill that played a key role in defeating Zezmok. Oh, I see. So maybe as the GM we would choose this. And the tree blesses this item and it becomes magical. And we have some choices, I guess, some either ideas. So the boots of someone who moves silently might become enchanted as boots of Elvenkind. Someone's cloak might get enchanted as a cloak of Elvenkind. A spell book or focus of a spellcaster might become enchanted like a pearl of power. Or you might get an extra D4 once per short rest to some kind of ability check. Ian says he's handed out wishes for less. Well, you know, I like that there's not a ton of power creep going on, right? Always an issue, the power creeping. So they've done a good job. This stuff is manageable, right? You could have a shield blessed. You could have a weapon blessed. You could get a charm against wounds. You might get some divine spell casting, get a new class level, or you might get a spell for what's a firebug? It's a binding flame of the Ashen God. That's kind of cool. Oh, I see. If someone's kind of a pyro, they can get this spell here. And then we have a section on outside the forest, rewards and loose ends. What's going on here? The city is bewildered. In the space of an afternoon, a dense forest has grown up and enveloped the sacred district. Everyone wants to know how it happened. Several false rumors are already in circulation. The forest is an invasion by wood elves who hope to conquer the city from within. I like that. The Silver Fists were right. The forest is a punishment for violating the sacred district, and it will grow until it envelops the city. Or the city is a sign that the gods have abandoned the city and the end of the world is approaching. Those are all good. Ian says, power creep, power schmeep. I mean, players wish they could turn to dragons. They still ended up dying. Yes. Well, I think there's those kinds of wishes are, I think, easier to manipulate. And I don't even mean wish spell itself so much as just overpowering with items or getting access to abilities that just become troublesome, especially for GMs. Because remember, it's oftentimes the issue is not so much with experienced GMs doing experienced things. And this, you see this on Reddit all the time. It's the new GMs who have done something and they don't know how to cope with it. The more experience you get, the more easy it is to figure out something or twist it around or do whatever. But new GMs, and this is a starter campaign, which some folks may pick up being that they're new. And this is, I mean, I think this would be a really good campaign for somebody who's new, because I do think it seems to live up, at least as far as reading it, to the idea that you might be able to run this without having to prep it super heavy. So it would be a good choice if somebody wanted to run something, and you know, we didn't want them to go buy a starter kit because maybe we don't want to celebrate Hasbro. We want to send them to an independent creator. I would certainly say this is a good one to try. And the last thing you want to do is then you've given this great starting spot. You've kind of set them up for success, and then you hamstring them by giving rewards that are going to be too much to handle for someone who's new. So I appreciate that they're keeping it kind of toned down. WJ says their main character is a pyro, but too many creatures can counter it. Definitely needs a different damage type to add to the arsenal. Yeah, I mean, that is, yes, like, right. I mean, just more creatures have fire protection of some sort than I think that's any other damage type for sure. So there's the uproar. When the party emerges, they find that a crowd is gathered around the edge of the sacred forest, worrying and speculating. Various paladin orders have dispatched agents to keep the crowd under control. Yohem Rustbanner of the Crimson Shield is among them, and he is the first to approach the party. Yohem wants to know what to tell the crowd to calm them down. Left to themselves, the crowd will break out into violence and lash out randomly. Roll 1d4 to determine if they attack. 1, the poor district of Tanner Docks. 2, the merchants in the Silver District. Or 3, the poor in the Old City. 3 or 4. Oh, they forgot the 4. Or the sacred forest itself. If the party wishes, I like that there's only a 25% chance that being mad and frustrated at the forest, they will actually attack the forest. They might just go rampage somewhere else. If the party wishes to help avert a riot, they can make a charisma check, and you can give advantage or disadvantage based on the explanation. Alternatively, the party can ensure a riot breaks out and direct it against a specific target with a different kind of check. So that's interesting too. So if the party wants to try to focus this riot to take out their enemies, they could also do that. And then another section on selling the full story. Yoem will mention to the party that the full story of what has happened would be very valuable to certain players in the city, such as merchants, paladin orders, or the criminal underground. Every major player in or around the city wants to know what happened in the sacred district, sacred district, and more importantly, to know more than others in hopes of some kind of advantage. Several characters will pay the party for exclusive information on their adventure with the Silver Fist and the new Sacred Forest. This is detailed in the following sections, and then they can try to sell them. But if they try to sell, let's see, if the party tries to sell their quote-unquote exclusive information to multiple buyers, it'll be found out in about a D4 days, and then the betrayed faction will become enemies of the party, which is fun for continued adventures. And then we've got some more things here, depending on where they go, what they do. And then we have on to other adventures. So a nice section of what can you do now that this is all done. This series of adventures has come to an end. The party may want to find further challenges in the city of Tura or move on to a new setting. Here are some ways to transition from the end of this adventure to a new one. So let's just read over these really quick. The other abandoned temples of the Sacred District are still there inside the Sacred Forest. A dungeon crawl set in an ancient temple can be set inside the city. Adventurers may still enter the temples of the Sacred District to plunder their treasures. Servants of the tree may also alert the party to the threat of ancient forces stirring inside these forgotten places of power. That's one. So another one is the undercity tunnels connect to deeper caves. Adventures featuring underground civilizations or subterranean horrors can easily be set underneath Tura City. That's the second one. And then third, the tree produces a seed. The party is tasked with carrying the seed to a far-off location and planting it. This will be the beginning of another sacred forest, extending the god's influence in the world. All right. Well, yeah, I think this is now, look, I've only read through it, and I've read through it briefly. So can I say with absolute certainty that you can run this with no to low prep? No, I can't. Do I feel like, given how it's laid out, given the information provided, that it would make sense to me that you could run this with no to low prep? Yes. As usual, I think the more you can prep these sorts of things, at least until you're really comfortable with the material, probably the better off. And I wouldn't necessarily recommend that, oh yeah, just roll in here with the book and start your session. Don't worry about anything. No, I wouldn't do that. However, I do think the book has a nice layout in terms of being able to find things quickly. Because I think when I look at, if I'm going to be running something with kind of little to no prep, kind of what kind of things do I want to know? I want to be able to see things, to be able to eyeball things, and to go and have organization that I can really see literally at a glance. I can look at something and say, okay, this is where it is. Go. If I have to start scanning multiple times, I have to be flipping back through a bunch of pages. That's going to slow me down. It's going to maybe make me nervous, especially I think if I'm new to a system, new to a game, maybe it's new players I'm playing with. If I'm stuck in some kind of silence because I can't find the thing I'm looking for and I've got to flip around 8 different places, that's going to be bad. It's going to make me feel bad. It's going to be these uncomfortable silences that you want to try to avoid in when you're playing. It's just it's not the best solution. Now, this book, I think, by keeping it super simple in terms of layout, it's not the prettiest laid out thing, but it's laid out super clearly. Numbers, letters, I can see all the hierarchies of information very clearly. I do think that they've thought through kind of, okay, you're in this spot. Here are the couple things that are going to be sort of the main things you're going to be doing. So we're going to cover those so that if you're like, oh, you're in that, like going across that chasm. Oh, they burned down the bridge. Now what? Oh, here's the section on crossing out the bridge. Great. They've acknowledged that that's a possibility. And then they present it, which I think is good. I like the idea that at the beginnings of these, like this one here, how you're entering the city, here are the rules you're going to want to find. And you can highlight, just take a couple minutes and go through them. I like that because, again, it's something that you can just spend a little bit of time on and then feel like you've got a sense of what you need. Like, okay, I've looked up those things. Great. I got myself familiar with the frightened condition. All right, I got those spells bookmarked. I feel good. I'm ready, because that's really a lot of it, is just feeling good as a GM, where you just feel like you're on top of the material. I think this material allows you to get that feeling pretty well. So I think it does a nice job. It's not super complicated. It gives you, some simple dungeon crawls. It gives you some sandbox space to work it out. You've got a couple of some factions you can mess around with. The idea of all of a sudden now you have this new god in the world. That's awesome. I think that's really the neat, maybe the thing is that you're setting up this new god in the world, and who doesn't love having new gods in the world? And by the way, this god then has the connection with the party, which means you've got all kinds of plot hooks, because if all else fails, you can have a dream of the tree. and that can be the start of something. And plus, I think, unlike a lot of other modules, at the end of this, I think the party, if they succeed, they've really had a permanent impact on the world. Not only is there a new god out there who they shaped, there's also this physical part of the city that is now completely different in a way that they also shaped. And that is really cool. And that is something I think as a player, when you come out of this, that's going to be the thing you're going to be talking about years later, when you're going to be laughing about what answers you gave to those questions, and then how that shaped this personality of this new god and how this area was. Like, I think that's like a really cool bit that I think, in terms of how memorable, say, is this adventure. I think there's a lot of memorability just in that. And it's not even about the combats or the location specifically, but having that little build, and then having that moment where it breaks free, having the city, this district of the city physically change. That stuff's really neat. I don't know that we always get enough of that, where the players feel like they've actually, something's really changed, like really changed. And I feel like this gives you that. And then if that's your first adventure and you get this feeling, that feels you're going to give a lot of buy-in to whatever happens next, because you're going to feel like the stuff you do matters, right? Because the stuff you do, I mean, it really, really matters. This wasn't, you got to be level 20 to go on this ride. No, this is something you're doing at, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, who knows at the end of it all, I guess, if you're level 5, but you went through this whole journey, and at the end of it, something really cool and concrete happened. So yeah, this was really cool. I enjoyed it. Thanks again to Corridon Fuller, if I'm saying that correctly, the author, who was kind enough to send this to me on Drive-Thru RPG. I reached out to them. I'll after the stream's over, I'll hook this up as promotional, but I asked for it. They didn't ask for it. And of course, I did this live, so there was no input on their point, on their point about what I would see or what I would say or not say. But I'll mark it as promotional, just because I believe it is $10 for the PDF on Drive-Thru. I'm not sure if it's available in print or anything like that. The printed copy, I'm not sure. But yeah, this is cool. And I hope that other folks are maybe emboldened by this kind of approach to maybe look at, if you're still developing for 5th edition or whatever comes next, or something else, to look at these ways of helping out GMs who maybe don't have the time and space to prep, maybe as you as a GM preps. Think about what's really important and really highlight that. And then this is really a book that's all about kind of usability, right? It's not gorgeous to look at. There's nothing wrong with it, but it's not, this is not a beautiful art piece, but that's not what it is. And I always feel like so many times we get lost in this. Like, it's such a beautiful art piece, but it's a book for playing a game. And if you can't play the game with the book, then it's failed its primary purpose. And this has succeeded, I think, well at its primary purpose, which is to help you play in this set of adventures that is called In the City of Forgotten Gods. Ian says, high magic in the best way possible. In the best way, I suppose. Yeah, yeah, definitely. I mean, yeah, I don't even know if I would necessarily call it high magic. I'm not sure what I would call it, but yes, I think it's very cool. You're interacting with these really cool things, but in sort of an interesting way. But yeah, really good. All right, folks, if you could give a thumbs up on your way out, that'd be awesome. If you found yourself in here and you're not subscribed, and you feel like subscribing, that would also be awesome. This will be a short week for me. Just a quick note, I'm going to PAX East this week, so I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to stream or anything from PAX East or how I'm going to do that. So my last regularly scheduled stream will probably be on Wednesday, and then Thursday and Friday we'll see what's happening there. But anyhow, I should be back tomorrow. In any case, enjoy the rest of your day, night, whenever you end up watching or listening to this. Game on. Oh wait, WJ, can anyone suggest a setting that has high magic but feels like grimdark, sword, and sorcery? Oh boy, I feel like that's a question for a whole stream, WJ. That's kind of hard, because they're sort of, I feel like those are almost in opposite ends of the spectrum. Grimdark, sword, and sorcery doesn't tend to be high magic in the sense of having lots of magic around, because that tends to undermine the grim darkness of it all. But I'll be curious to know if anybody has any thoughts. Post in the comments, because I'd love to, if there is someone that's been able to cross grimdark, sword, and sorcery with high magic, I'd love to hear about it. All right, folks. Game on. I will talk to y'all later. Bye now.